Hey, I just saw The Blackening. It was pretty good.
Oh yeah, I wanted to see that.
Oh yeah, me too. Don't spoil it. I'm going this weekend.
Hey! You all have 1 minute to decide which of you is the whitest, and then I'm gonna kill him.
Oh. Is that a thong on your face?
Yeah, and this is a knife in my hand. You just wasted 10 seconds. Get deciding.
My grandma's from Indonesia. Leave me out of this. Oh, you're adopted. Oh god, okay. She eats avocado toast with an iced coffee every morning. So does she, and then she brags that all she had for breakfast was an iced latte.
Oh, that's low.
Yeah, and her family spends a week in Hawaii every single year.
So?
In a timeshare.
It's definitely her.
But no. Her parents let guests wear shoes inside the house. Even her parents wear shoes inside the house. All our parents do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got one. She got cornrows in the 6th grade. That's a black hairstyle, that's not white. Ain't nothing whiter than cultural appropriation, bitch. Is that a black scent I hear?
Boo!
We need more time, we don't have an answer, this isn't fair.
Good, because it was a trick question.
Huh?
It was a trick question, you fucking idiots. This is a review of The Blackening. You think these people want to hear you talk about your whiteness?
Oh.
Huh. Here's a clue. Not everything is about you, especially today. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill every last one of you, then we can get on with the review. Sound good?
No!
Okay, hello. We don't need to see that. Did you like my meta introduction? Sometimes I like to shake it up and do little bits. You never really know what you're gonna get when you click on one of my videos, and isn't that fun? I mean, isn't it just exhilarating? If you live for that kind of danger, then consider joining my cult. That's right, this is the most specialist YouTube channel ever because my followers are not just followers. They are devoted cult members, uplifting me on my journey to rule the world. If you're in the market for an unholy ruler, then you're in such luck because here I am. All you have to do is click subscribe, and I would recommend also clicking the notification bell because then that way you never miss our next meeting. But yes, this is a review of The Blackening, a brand new dark comedy that releases this weekend. The Blackening follows a group of adults as they spend the Juneteenth weekend in a cabin in the woods, when a mysterious assailant makes them play black trivia to save their lives. Today will be a quick spoiler-free review because I am posting this the day the movie releases, and I really want to just get the word out about this movie because it is something highly unique and fresh in the horror culture. I'm gonna start by talking a little bit about the origins of the movie and some of the behind the scenes. I'll also get into a bunch of the themes of the movie and some background on Juneteenth and the industry as a whole. In doing so, I will bring in a bunch of interview clips that I've compiled. Finally, I'll get into all my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, get into everything that I can without getting into the story, and of course, let you fine people know whether or not you should go out and see this one in theaters. So first up, where did this movie begin? It was actually a short film made for Comedy Central originally, and you can find it right here on YouTube. I definitely recommend that you do so, but I would maybe wait until after you watch the feature because they do recycle a lot of the best jokes from the short film. Given the concept, this movie is also about black frustration. Writer Dwayne Perkins talked about how he almost never sees himself represented in mainstream media in several interviews. As a black gay man, he had to write himself an opportunity, which he did with the short. Previously, he had written a couple of episodes for Brooklyn Nine-Nine and for a few other TV series and obscure web series, and being a huge fan of Scream and Scary Movie, he thought what better place to comment on genre tropes than in horror. I don't think there's another genre with a black people always die cliche, so horror it was. But what do you do when the entire cast is black? We can't all die first. Which, if I may, this is the last time that I will belabor this point, I promise. That tagline is incredible. How do you look at a poster where it says The Blackening and we can't all die first, and you go, yeah, The Blackening is definitely the better title there. Anyway, so the short film was a success and it caught the attention of producer Tracy Oliver. If you're not familiar, she's the screenwriter for Little, Barbershop The Next Cut, and Girls Trip, which is probably her most successful film, which is what she attributes to being able to make The Blackening.
There was a clear difference between pre-Girls Trip and post-Girls Trip for me. The pre-Girls Trip life was, we've never seen this work before. Black women are niche. We've never seen them actually have mainstream success. When I would reference The Hangover, it would be okay, but those are men. And then if you say Bridesmaids, okay, but those are white women. Everyone's telling me this can't work. This can't be mainstream. It can't make money. And so when Girls Trip, with 4 black women made $150 million, everyone was oh my God, it can work. So then all of a sudden I could go pitch things like The Blackening. When I called Dwayne about doing The Blackening, it was the same year Girls Trip came out. And I don't think I would have been able to help him sell this movie the year prior. I just knew I had a window. Took it out with Dwayne and we sold it like within months of Girls Trip coming out because I knew I have like momentum and I have a halo in this moment. And honestly, that's how blackness works in this business.
That's a common thread. You can feel a lot of the appreciation flowing through the cast and crew. There seems to be a shared catharsis about being involved in this project, which is nice. Because the main goal of the movie, the main theme, is how black people are not a monolith. It's the subversion of the typical trope throughout all genres of the black best friend. For once, that best friend is actually a fully fleshed out lead character. And there's not only one of them, but it's the entire cast. So they set up a lot of the characters as common black archetypes, and then they push them further to explore the character underneath that archetype. Because movie making has historically always been a white-dominated space, we've really only seen white interpretations of blackness in the mainstream.
As like a black gay man existing in this country, a lot of my life have been navigating systems and being like, okay, this is not necessarily made for me. How do I thrive in this setting? I've had people generalize things to me about blackness who are not black, and I'm just like, how do we exist in this world where there are such large generalizations about a certain group of people? And I think that's the whole movie, is breaking those down, of showing you so many different facets and sides of blackness that it's proving you cannot make this one thing, because it's not, and it never has been. And if you think that way, you're wrong.
In several interviews, he also talks about how he had to make the opportunity for himself and write himself this movie, which is true for pretty much anyone not born into the industry. You have to make your own opportunities. If you want to be an actor, write yourself a movie. You want to be a director, write yourself a movie. That's what I'm doing for the second time. That's right, you can find my GoFundMe linked down below. You can help fund my second independent short horror film called Liked. There are lots of fun incentives for donating, so hop on that train, partner. Anyway, it's much more difficult the more ostracized from society you are. Black and gay equals very hard to find opportunity in the industry.
My frustration comes within the industry of giving us positions and not power. For things like Girls Trip and for Get Out to come out, like it takes a non-black to say like, yes, this is good, this is great, this will do well. But if you have us in power and not in just positions as studio execs, as people that are making these choices for marketing, because it's not just Girls Trip coming out, right? It's not just Harlem coming out. It's that fucking marketing rollout, right? It's those pop-up installations. It's that for your consideration panel. Like, we need support from production to fruition to marketing. I do not see that enough for Black creatives. I feel like they pick their five, at one time. And I feel like we don't get enough equity and access to take risks, to create at such a high scale of a level like a Girls Trip, like The Blackening. We need more programs. We need more directors. We need more Tracy Olivers. And I feel like we're out there and we have those stories. We're not given the opportunity.
In that interview, we heard Tracy Oliver talk about the success of Girls Trip and how that even offered her the window to pitch this movie at all. Because often studios aren't concerned with, are the opportunities we're offering equitable? Is a diverse group of filmmakers representing us and telling accurate stories? No, they're like, what's gonna make us that cold hard cash? And since forever, the consensus has been Black stories are not marketable. Unless they're Oscar bait trauma porn, which this group also talked a lot about in interviews. Because this movie is not that. It's a very earnest satire. So the bar for these stories has always just been exceptionally high. In fact, another reason why this movie got made is because of the director, Tim Story. His movies have totaled over $1 billion in revenue for various studios, and so he was kind of like a safe bet to attach to this project. Though this group was also asked if they noticed kind of a shift in the industry. And they noted that Black creators are staying more true to their vision rather than whitewashing things.
We were surprised that they allowed us to keep it as Black as it was, because we were just like, we're just gonna write what we want, what makes us laugh. By the final version, we said, damn, they really kept a lot of niggas in here.
As much as they scream diversity and inclusion, it's just like, they don't want things to be too Black.
Yeah, I would say that is one of the privileges of doing it as an indie first, is that there was less cooks in the kitchen to tell us how to display Blackness. And the people who were white, they just gave us the freedom because they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I don't really move with that fear. My whole life has been consuming media that was not made for me, so I don't feel inclined to put my point of view through a funnel for people that are not of me. If you don't know, then figure it out.
I think this movie is definitely going to have an impact for every reason already discussed today. Dwayne wants this movie to be a landmark in the lexicon of horror movies because it's something that's never been done in the mainstream. That hopefully it will inspire a trend of these movies being seen as more marketable. It makes sense too because horror is the genre to get that done. It literally sets the tone for the rest of the industry sometimes because it's where all the outcasts end up. And us outcasts have the best taste. It's ridiculous. But Jordan Peele proved that 6 years ago with Get Out, which is actually one of the inspirations for this movie. As was Scream, like I said, Dwayne and Tracy were huge fans. And they had a producer on this movie from Cabin in the Woods, and as far as I could tell, he was like the only white guy there. Or I mean, he was the only white person that I saw interviewed. So this movie really feels like a big blend of all of those movies plus Scary Movie. I think despite that, it still manages to feel really original. The story is not original, groundbreaking, or great, but it's the context of the story and I think the cast that gives it that originality. That was definitely the main goal, I think, to have a more original tone than story, but the movie also takes place on Juneteenth, which is coming up in a few days. Which, quick history tangent for those of you that don't know, but you really should know, Juneteenth, which takes place on June 19th, commemorates the emancipation of enslaved people. When we celebrate July 4th, it's kind of a heaping pile of bullshit because so many Americans were actually not free. People were still enslaved at that time, and it wasn't until almost 100 years later in 1865 when Union soldiers went to Texas to emancipate them. I've linked an NPR article down below that really succinctly kind of describes all the major points of the holiday. I'm just going to read out part of the order that was read aloud by Major General Gordon Granger. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection herefore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired laborer. Unfortunately, after this, enslaved people were not freed right away. It took several years for the Union to have the manpower to properly enforce this, but June 19th became a national black holiday nonetheless. Not officially though, and crazily enough, it did not become a federal national holiday until June of 2021. 2 years ago. Anyway, commonly today, you will find people celebrating it through cookouts, church events, live music, basically any kind of like public event, now including the release of a big blockbuster movie with an all-black cast and crew.
I feel like it coming out Juneteenth weekend is going to create something that I'm hoping, not unlike July 4th, becomes a box office weekend that all studios are fighting for. And because we are coming out and establishing that, I'm excited for that. Because I think it's going to set a whole precedent of like, okay, now Juneteenth is a weekend that everyone wants. And if you can own Juneteenth, then it's like, you did something right with your film.
Yeah. Cheers. I say that we can never have too many movie event weekends in a single year. Hence why I do recommend this movie. Yes, I'm getting into my spoiler-free thoughts of the film. Let's go. I think that my favorite thing about this movie is definitely the chemistry of the cast. You can tell there was a lot of improv, and I think that those moments worked better than some of the written jokes. There's a lot of fantastic humor in this movie, and in fact, I got to see it with a big crowd. I went on an early screening night. It was the Wednesday preview, and it was actually pretty full, which I'm glad about because I haven't really seen much marketing for this movie online, and that's very weird because my algorithms are geared towards all things horror. I've only seen a few trailer ads on Twitter. I feel like we need to make a lot more noise about this movie. Like, you know how Megan and Skinamarink, people just made a shit ton of memes that were all over Twitter? We should do that with this one. Anyways, my point is, I saw it in a crowded theater and people were laughing a lot, hooting and hollering even. Though there is quite a bit of humor that I felt like didn't work. It's real low hanging fruit. I would say that it's about like a 60-40 split between the humor that does work and the humor that's kind of like, eh. And usually I don't mind that because in any comedy movie, there's gonna be some jokes that don't land. But it was just a weird mix in this movie because some of the comedy was like highbrow, critical thought required, and some of the lowbrow stuff was really well placed, which made it funny. But then a lot of it is like, how did the person who was smart enough to write this joke also write that one? So like I said, the best jokes were unwritten. It was improv with the actors. Hands down though, I think my favorite moments of comedy were when they were debating each other's blackness. This isn't really a spoiler because it's literally on the poster, but they have to do black trivia and debate how black they are just to survive.
One of the things that's unearthed is who's the blackest? What does it mean to be black? There's no such thing, truthfully. I mean, there's a culture that we all sort of understand and get as black people. Some people are raised slightly different and they come from different backgrounds, social and economic backgrounds. Doesn't make you any less black.
I think I found those moments the funniest because they were the smartest with the humor. I understood all the cultural references, so in that way I really felt like I was watching the black version of Scream. It also really let that genuine chemistry of the cast shine through, so actually circling back to that, these actors had never met before and it was a concern of Dwayne's. He's like, what if these people don't have good vibes? But from from the first day, everyone automatically clicked. They even had a group chat they talked in every single day. I think it's a testament to the casting when things like that happen. And movies are pretty much always better because of it. I'm looking at you, Scream 5 and 6. I don't think that they're the deepest of characters, but they each have their own little quirks that go deeper than the archetype they're representing. You discover more about their relationships through the conflict of this movie in really fun ways. And it is mostly fun. I don't think that I could in good faith call this a horror movie. And trust me, I hate those people that are like, well, it's not really a horror movie. No, it's more of a psychological suspense thriller. Like, bro, you're talking about The Invisible Man. It's fucking horror. Can we just... So trust me, I'm not one of those people. But this is like extra light diet horror. It's pretty much just a comedy through and through. There isn't really any tension because it's constantly just jokes. Even if one of the characters is inches from death, they're just cracking jokes about it, so it doesn't really leave any room for suspense to build. The only moments of horror are a few like slightly gory effects, and I do mean slightly. There really isn't any blood in this movie, and I wish that there were. There are a few moments they really could have hammed up. So if you're looking for the type of humor you'll find in Mayhem or Ready or Not, this movie just does not have that kind of slapstick gore. This is entirely character and humor driven, so just manage your expectations if need be. There is also the really obvious horrors of racism that are brought up in the movie, but even those are really hammed up for laughs, which is totally done intentionally.
It's interesting. There are going to be people who have moments where they see we're laughing, but then you realize in life there are people of color that are dealing with extremely dangerous situations, whether they're interactions with the police or they're dealing with any threat to their lives. Sometimes we have to laugh at it so that you don't cry about it, essentially. So I just love that we poke fun at a lot of things, but we also bring up some really important issues.
So even if some of the subject matter of the movie is really horrific, it's not really felt because they're making fun of it, which is cool. It's a way to reclaim those horrific things and kind of exert some control over the narrative. It's a really, really effective way to bring some of those horrific things to the consciousness of the mainstream. Because in the moment, it seems really lighthearted and fun, but then you get to thinking about it and you don't stop thinking about it. In fact, you get home and you're like, ooh, I gotta Google some stuff. Like Juneteenth, this movie is successfully bringing that holiday more into our consciousness. They wrote about it and we're talking about it, am I right? I think that is proper satire. It's so successful on that front. In terms of story, like I said, not the best. Given that it's a slasher and it's inspired by Scream, you can also probably gather it's a little bit of a whodunit. But to be honest, a lot of the twists in the movie were just like entirely predictable, which was kind of a bummer. And there wasn't really like a story there at all. It was really just character driven. They set up the relationships between the characters really well, and those are fleshed out pretty well in terms of some characters coming to self-acceptance or some characters working out issues they have with other characters. That all feels pretty complete. But there isn't really a story to back it up there, which I don't really find to be an issue in this movie until the pacing starts to lag, which in the entire first act it's kind of struggling along because there's a lot they have to set up between all the characters. It also takes them a surprisingly long time for everybody to show up at the cabin, and it feels like most of the movie is just conversations, like a lot of conversations. Very little action, which is okay, but generally you just expect a bit more from a slasher. Because while there were some good readings of the genre, I don't feel like these filmmakers were necessarily the most familiar with the genre. They knew about Scream, and so there's some really good references in there, but I do wish that it was a little bit more referential of the genre because they ended up referencing a lot of like 90s pop culture, which I kind of worry won't click with general audiences or maybe just I don't like people my age, but it is age appropriate to the characters in the movie, so that's probably the main target audience anyways. So all of that to say, in summary, a lot of the humor worked, a good amount didn't. I really liked some of the characters, but definitely found the most enjoyment in their chemistry. There's a good amount of importance of this movie's existence, and I really hope that it does kick off the trend of all Black-led cast movies released on Juneteenth, and it's really good. I don't think that it's great, so don't expect that, but it's one of those slightly above average, entertainment-centric films that is meant to be seen in a packed theater. It's very interactive and fun to see with a crowd, so I recommend doing it. Get out there, go see it this weekend. Let's incentivize these studios to start making more stuff like this, but also see it because it's good and funny and worth seeing. It's a win-win. And that's actually gonna do it for today. I don't usually post videos this short, but like I said, the movie is coming out today, so I didn't want to get into spoilers. I really just wanted to incentivize people to get out and go see it. If you enjoyed this review, as in you made it to the end and you haven't declared your soul to me yet, what are we even doing here? Click that subscribe button, and after you do that, maybe after you binge some of my other content and you decide you want even more bonus content, join my Patreon. You can see my lovely patrons' names scrolling here on screen. You can find that linked at the top of the description box down below. Oh wait, that's not true. I'll have all my research research, probably linked at the top, but just scroll down a little bit, you'll find the Patreon. But these people keep the lights on. I've been hunkered away the past like 2 weeks working on a giant It deep dive, so that's coming out pretty soon. Basically, the Patreon funding just allows me the time to do that when I'm not doing a live stream or releasing a video. They supplement my income. Also, gentle reminder to support a gay little filmmaker like me by donating to my GoFundMe down below. If you want to see updates on all the incentives and the wacky stuff that I'm doing trying to raise money, you can also follow me on all my social media. That's linked down below as well. So knock yourself out. Have fun over there. With that, I think I'm done. Stay sexy out there. Das vidanya. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.